The 2013-2014 college basketball season was loaded with several entertaining teams, exciting highlights, and most noteworthy, several talented and skilled players. And with this in mind, at the conclusion of every college basketball season, several different media outlets, coaches, and various other selectors put together honorary teams of the best performing players for the year, more commonly referred to as the All-American teams. And the 2013-2014 All-American teams featured several incredibly talented, skilled, and entertaining players. With it now being over a decade since these players earned this prestigious honor, I thought it'd be interesting to look back at each of the first and second team All-Americans and analyze how their basketball careers ended up. Who of the bunch would go on to find great success in the NBA, and how many ended up having their All-American title be the peak of their basketball career. If you enjoy this type of content and want to see more, be sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel for more sports content. Now without further ado, let's dive in. Starting things off with the second team All-Americans, up first is the senior hybrid forward out of Wichita State, Cleanthony Early. In his final collegiate season, Early put up strong averages of 16 points and 5 rebounds a game, alongside solid shooting percentages of 48% from the field and 37% from 3. Additionally, he helped lead his squad to a perfect 34-0 record in the regular season, making it all the way to the second round of the NCAA tournament before suffering a loss to the University of Kentucky, ending their season. Soon after, Early would declare for the NBA draft, where he'd go on to be selected in the second round with the 34th pick by the New York Knicks. His career in the NBA would be pretty short, however, lasting just 2 seasons, most of which he spent playing for the Knicks G League affiliate, the Westchester Knicks. However, he did still manage to appear in 56 NBA games, starting 9 of them, and putting up averages of 4 points and 2 rebounds a game. He bounced around in the G League in the following seasons before beginning his international career and is now playing with the Sawjess Basketball Club in the Lebanese Basketball League. Up next for the second team All-American honorees is the senior small forward from Syracuse, CJ Fair. CJ was about as versatile as they come in the college ranks, putting up a well-rounded stat line of 16 points, 6 rebounds, 1 assist, and 1 steal per game. He'd lead his squad to a strong 26-8 record, good enough to earn an at-large berth to the NCAA tournament, where they'd go on to be knocked out in the second round by Dayton. Following the season, CJ would declare for the NBA draft, where he'd wind up going undrafted, but would be quickly picked up by the Fort Wayne Mad Ants of the G League. He'd go on to play multiple seasons with the Mad Ants, playing very well, but unfortunately never got the call up to the NBA. In the following years, CJ would bounce back and forth between international clubs in the G League, but once again could never get over the hump of making an NBA roster. As of now, he's playing in Saudi Arabia as a member of the Al Nassr Basketball Club. Moving on to our next second-team All-American honoree, we've got the senior shooting guard Sean Kilpatrick from the University of Cincinnati. Sean in his senior year proved to be one of the most dynamic and talented scorers in all of college basketball, averaging an impressive 20 points a game alongside 4 rebounds, 2 assists, and 1 steal. As the primary offensive option for his squad, Sean would lead the Bearcats to a 27-7 regular season record, earning an at-large berth to the NCAA tournament. However, they'd quickly be eliminated after a first-round loss to Harvard. Nonetheless, Sean would declare for the NBA draft shortly after, going undrafted, but was eventually scooped up by the Santa Cruz Warriors of the G League. He'd spend the next few years bouncing around to various franchises, playing primarily in the G League, but still seeing some occasional NBA action. The peak of his career would come in the 2016-2017 seasons, where he had some breakout games for the Brooklyn Nets, who eventually signed him to a multi-year contract. Unfortunately for Sean, however, he'd wind up being a cap casualty a bit later on, being waived by the Nets at the end of 2017. In the following years, he'd see sparing NBA action, signing several 2-way and 10-day contracts for various teams, before eventually taking his talents internationally. As of today, Sean is playing professionally in China for the Fujian Sturgeons. For our next second-team All-American, we've got our first non-senior with sophomore shooting guard out of the University of Michigan, Nick Stauskas. Nick was another guy that was very skilled at scoring the ball, averaging over 17 points a game, and was also one of the best 3-point shooters in the country, hitting them at a 44% clip on 5 attempts per game. On a Michigan squad that featured several other NBA prospects, Stauskas served his role as the team's scorer and sharpshooter very well, as the Wolverines cruised to a 28-9 record, making it all the way to the Elite 8 before being knocked out by the University of Kentucky. And at the conclusion of the season, Stauskas would decide to forego his remaining eligibility and declare for the NBA draft, where he'd be selected 8th overall by the Sacramento Kings. He'd go on to have a pretty lengthy NBA career, playing for 7 different teams, and last making an appearance in 2022 for the Boston Celtics. For a top 10 pick, his career was overall pretty disappointing, because outside of the occasional splash game, his elite shooting in college never really translated to the NBA, and his struggles on the defensive end, along with injuries, certainly didn't help either. As of today, Nick is retired from basketball, and based on my research, appears to have taken up an interest in day trading and investing. Up next, we've got another sophomore as a second-team All-American with NC State small forward TJ Warren. TJ was unquestionably one of the most dominant and dynamic players in college basketball in 2014, with season averages of 24 points, 7 rebounds, and almost 2 steals a game. Although his squad did struggle at times throughout the season, he still managed to lead the Wolfpack to a 22-14 record and an at-large berth to the NCAA tournament, eventually getting knocked out by St. Louis in the first 4 tournament bracket. Following the season, Warren would forgo the rest of his eligibility and enter the NBA draft, where he'd be selected at the end of the lottery as the 14th pick by the Phoenix Suns. And during his first few seasons with the Suns, he would see steady improvements each season until having a breakout year 4 where he averaged over 19 points and 5 rebounds a game. But after an injury-riddled 5th season, the Suns eventually traded him away to the Pacers, where he'd have a strong comeback season. And I'm sure many people remember his absolutely insane play in the NBA bubble, averaging 31 points a game, including one where he dropped 53 points. Now, unfortunately, his career would see a sharp decline after that, in large part due to injury, which kept him out of action for almost 2 full seasons. And ever since making his return to the court, he unfortunately just hasn't looked like the same player, and as such has settled more into a role as an instant offense guy off the bench, instead of a full-time starter. Recently, he was let go by the Knicks and currently remains unsigned. Although he isn't quite the same player he used to be, I still do think he can be a decent contributor for several teams, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him get picked up in the near future. And to finish up the second-team All-American squad, we've got the highly talented freshman small forward out of the University of Kansas, Andrew Wiggins. Wiggins was one of the most hyped-up freshmen college basketball had seen in recent years, with many people expecting him to be a very likely candidate to be one and done. And he certainly managed to live up to the hype his freshman year, putting up averages of 17 points, 5 rebounds, and a steal per game, while creating some absolutely insane highlights. And alongside a Kansas roster always loaded with NBA talent, the Jayhawks finished the regular season with a 25-10 record and an at-large berth to the NCAA tournament, eventually getting knocked out by Stanford in the second round. And as many people predicted, after his lone season in college, Wiggins would declare for the NBA draft, getting selected first overall by the Cleveland Cavaliers. However, he'd quickly be traded to the Timberwolves as part of the 3-team trade for Kevin Love. And after joining the Timberwolves team that had been a perennial bottom feeder the last few seasons, Wiggins was looked at as one of the franchise's cornerstones moving forward. But despite many projecting him as a future star player, he unfortunately never quite reached that level. He still put up decent numbers and showed some great flashes, but after a few seasons, the young big man Karl Anthony Towns really took over the reins as the team's star player, and as such, Wiggins would be traded away to the Golden State Warriors after 5.5 seasons. And serving in more of a complementary role in Golden State with much less pressure to perform, Wiggins really found his groove, even being a key piece in the Warriors championship in 2022. He's not putting up the same numbers he was in Minnesota, but overall, I'd say he's found himself a much better fit in Golden State, and after coming off a bit of a down year in 2023, I'm very interested to see how he does this upcoming season. Moving on now to the NCAA basketball first-team All-Americans, the best of the best. First up is the junior point guard out of the University of Arizona, Nick Johnson. Although his averages of 16 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists per game don't particularly stand out from the other All-Americans, it was also his capabilities on the defensive end that made him such a great player. In essence, meaning he was one of the best two-way players in college basketball. And with his versatile skill set, he helped lead the Wildcats to an impressive 33-5 record and an at-large berth to the NCAA tournament, although they'd be knocked out by Wisconsin in the Elite Eight. And after his breakout junior season, Nick declared for the NBA draft and would be selected in the second round with the 42nd pick by the Houston Rockets. His NBA career would be very brief, spending just one season with the Rockets, in which he appeared in 28 games, averaging 2 points and 1 rebound a game. After this, he would never make another NBA appearance, bouncing between various G League teams and international clubs, and as of now is playing for the Hapoel Holon in the Israeli Basketball Premier League. Up next is the man who was actually named as the College Basketball Player of the Year in 2014, and that's senior small forward Doug McDermott out of Creighton. In addition to being the Player of the Year, McDermott also led the nation in scoring at 26.7 points per game and was one of the best shooters in the country, shooting an efficient 52% from the field and 44% from 3. And in his final collegiate season, he led his Creighton squad to a 27-8 record and an appearance in the NCAA tournament, where they made it to the second round before being knocked out by Baylor. Following his incredible college career, McDermott would declare for the draft, being drafted 11th overall by the Denver Nuggets and then traded to the Chicago Bulls. So far in his 11-year NBA career, the prolific scoring he showed in college never really translated to the NBA. He's shown some flashes over the years, however he's mostly been pinholed into a role as a 3-point spot-up shooter. But in the modern NBA, that is a very valuable skill set that teams like having on the roster, which explains why he's been able to stick around the NBA for so long. But as of his recent seasons, it does seem like his time in the league is starting to wind down. He recently signed a contract with the Sacramento Kings, so I'm very interested to see how big of a role he'll have this upcoming season. Moving on now, we've got the senior point guard out of UConn, Shabazz Napier. Definitely one of the more flashy and entertaining players to watch in college basketball, Shabazz put up well-rounded averages of 18 points, 5 assists, 4 rebounds, and almost 2 steals a game. Not only that, but he was the driving engine behind a UConn team that went 32-8 on the season and brought home a national championship. And after ending his college career on a high note, Shabazz declared for the NBA draft, where he was selected with the 24th pick by the Charlotte Hornets and then immediately traded to the Miami Heat. And during his NBA career, he primarily served as a solid backup point guard off the bench that could get you some quick buckets and run the offense. He wasn't a star player by any means or even starting caliber, but he was serviceable for what he was. His last NBA appearance was in 2020 with the Washington Wizards, where he was actually putting up career numbers before they decided to waive him. And after taking his talents outside of the US and playing for various international leagues, he now finds himself with the Olimpia Milano basketball club in Italy. The next first-team All-American honoree is the freshman power forward out of Duke, Jabari Parker. Similar to previously discussed Andrew Wiggins, Parker was a highly touted and hyped-up freshman coming into college, and he put up an even better freshman season than Wiggins with an impressive stat line of 19 points and 8 rebounds a game. And despite being on a team loaded with NBA talent, Parker was still able to carve out a big role for himself, helping lead the Blue Devils to a 26-9 record with an at-large berth to the NCAA tournament, where they dropped their first-round game to Mercer. Despite the disappointing end of the season, Parker was still considered a top prospect in the upcoming NBA draft, where he'd end up being selected with the 2nd overall pick by the Milwaukee Bucks. But unfortunately for Parker, his rookie season would be cut short with him tearing his ACL just 25 games in, and this would mark the start of a very injury-riddled career for Jabari. Every time it seemed he was building some momentum, he would suffer another setback due to injuries, and this was such a shame to see since when he was on the court, he looked very good and flashed tons of potential. After his time with the Bucks never really worked out, he bounced around to various different teams, never being able to find a consistent role, and as of now plays for the FC Barcelona basketball club in the EuroLeague. Certainly very disappointing for Jabari to see how his career ended up playing out, but as sports fans, we're well aware that injuries are just one of the harsh realities that athletes have to face. And lastly, rounding out the first-team All-American honorees is the Louisville senior combo guard Russ Smith. Undoubtedly the smallest guy of the bunch, measuring in at just 6 foot, 165 pounds, he didn't let that stop him from being one of the best players in the country, putting up impressive averages of 18 points, 4 assists, and 2 steals a game. In his final collegiate season, he helped lead the Cardinals to a 31-6 record and made it all the way to the Sweet 16 of the NCAA tournament, eventually being knocked out by the University of Kentucky. After declaring for the draft, Russ would be selected with the 47th pick in the 2nd round by the Philadelphia 76ers, and shortly after traded to the New Orleans Pelicans. He'd appear in 6 games for the Pelicans, not being much of a contributor, before being traded to the Memphis Grizzlies, where he'd spend the next 2 seasons. Overall for his NBA career, Russ appeared in 27 games, averaging 2 points. However, he would go on to have a very successful career in China for the next 4 years, and then proceeded to bounce around a bit between the G League and other international clubs. As of now, it seems that Russ isn't playing professional ball anymore, but he recently made appearances in TBT, aka the basketball tournament, as a member of Louisville's alumni team. Whether he decides to pursue pro ball again or is now on to the next phase of his life, I wish him good luck in whatever he does. So that was every player from the 2014 NCAA All-American teams and how their basketball careers ended up panning out. Overall, I would say it's kind of all over the map, literally and figuratively, with some finding NBA success, some settling into role player status, and others taking their talents outside of the US to make an impact on various international clubs. But no matter how their professional careers turned out, nobody can ever take away their impressive play in the 2013-2014 college basketball season and their title as an All-American. Be sure to leave a like on the video if you enjoyed, and subscribe to the channel for more sports content. If you have any thoughts on any of the players in the video, be sure to leave a comment down below alongside any other video suggestions you'd like to see. This is HCP signing off. As always, I hope you have a great rest of your day. I'm out. Peace.